welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories podcast. Hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we have Abhishek Vaid from the Untravel Show. Regular listeners would remember him from the wonderful account of his trip to Kartarpur Sahib that we covered on the podcast some time back. Today, Abhishek takes us to a brand new destination. Let's hop on to the episode and untravel with Abhishek. So with that introduction, we'd like to welcome back, Abhishek Vaid from the Untravel Show. Hey Abhishek, welcome back to the Musafir Stories.
Yay! So happy to be back.
Yes, so it's been a long time.
It's been, I think, easily 2 years now, or maybe 1.5, 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, and Abhishek obviously has been going places with the Untravel Show, and really looking forward to the conversation. But Abhishek, for first-time listeners, why don't you give a quick overview of one introduction about you, yourself, and also the Untravel Show and the Untravel way. Like I was telling you, it's very different to the usual check off your bucket list type of traveling. So why don't you give us a quick overview?
Sure. So I run this travel media company, which of course also has an online travel show by the name of the Untravel Show. The idea behind Untravel is that one is travel unlike the way we have been doing so far, and the other is travel content unlike the kind that we have been watching so far. So of course, when someone hears travel content, the first thing that comes to their mind is travel vlogs. But to be honest, I am an old school that way. I'm an 80s kid, and I was born and raised in the era of travel shows and not travel vlogs. So I was very clear right from the start when I took the entrepreneurial plunge that I want. It's a childhood dream of having a travel show either on a TV or any other platform. And yes, I realized, but by then I was in my early 30s, and I realized that nobody is going to launch me or come up with a travel show concept where I can be the host. So I said, "Theek hai yaar, if that's not gonna happen, why not do it all by myself?" So why a travel show is because the entire content is theme based and story based. We are not really into 10 best places to stay or 10 restaurants to eat at or 10 things to do, because I feel that the entire approach towards best thing and most important places to see and whatnot has commoditized travel. To me, travel has always been an emotion. Travel has always been an experience. Travel has always been nostalgia. And through our episodes, our intent is not really to give you an end-to-end travel guide, but at least for those 15-20 minutes, hold your hands and teleport you to that place where I am with the entire emotions that I'm feeling, either looking at a view or having a particular cuisine or having a conversation about somebody's life. So that is the kind of content that we deal in. So we call it that we are not an informative platform or informative channel. We are an emotive channel. Our intent is to provide those 15, 20, 25 minutes of sukoon, 25 minutes of solace, escape from the usual rut called life.
Yeah, beautifully put, and very much in the line of how your videos are and how the brand Untravel Show is, right? Very cinematic, very thematic, and also very personal and laid back, I would say, right? Not for somebody who's in a hurry going from place to place. I mean, that's a different genre of travel.
In fact, very recently we have discovered another consumer insight. It's exactly on the lines of what you just now said, that a bunch of people have come back to me and said that that's the last piece of content that they would like to watch at the end of the day, or the first piece of content to start off their day.
Yeah, the appetizer or the dessert.
Appetizer or the dessert,
menu,
exactly. Very, very well put. Because for them, it's like now either you're gearing up for the day and you want that last few minutes of solace, or you're winding down after a long day and you just want to actually get in that groove of feeling good.
Absolutely, and that's what we'll try to get more into the details of. But yeah, Abhishek, where are you taking us to today?
So this time I think we are heading north, and when I say north, I would say India's northernmost border with Pakistan and China. I would say the pinnacle of the Himalayan destinations, none other than Ladakh. The destination which is on, I think, everybody's checklist, bucket list these days, for good as well as for bad. But it's finally the time to untravel Ladakh.
Yeah, really looking forward to untravel Ladakh, because we've seen a lot of, bullet bros driving from Kanyakumari to Ladakh, and we have seen that way of traveling and exploring Ladakh, but really excited to learn about the untravel way of Ladakh. And Abhishek, you really had me at, you beautifully recreated literally Shah Rukh Khan's entrance in Jab Tak Hai Jaan, I think. Yeah, Jab Tak Hai Jaan, Teri Aankhon Ki Ye Namkeen Mastiyan, that poem. So I'll definitely make sure we link the trailer as well, so people can get a little envious and jealous of how Abhishek has recreated
in fact,
that.
You won't believe, actually, the first episode. So we have a cinematic sequence when the first episode starts, and we got a bunch of comments that this has that Jab Tak Hai Jaan vibe, and I don't know if I have to feel good or bad about it. But having said that, then I actually went ahead, and because I haven't watched that movie, and I was like, I have to check out that what Jab Tak Hai Jaan vibe are they talking about. And yes, there's a very super cinematic sequence in which Shah Rukh Khan is riding a bike, and the exact the poem that you just now narrated, it's there. And and after watching that, I felt good about it. That okay, not bad actually. If this is the case, I'm happy to be a Shah Rukh then.
Yeah, Abhishek is the OG. Cool, but yeah, tell us, like, that gives us a great intro even to the series that's currently ongoing, and would love to explore more of Ladakh that way. Like I said, we've seen a variety of other genres also where the touristic circuit of Ladakh has been covered. But how was your experience getting to Ladakh? So we'll get more into that. For people who are still exploring or thinking about exploring Ladakh, would you also want to give us a quick orientation of where Ladakh is and how one can get there?
So Ladakh, as I said, it's the northernmost part of the country. The easiest way to get there is to get a flight from Delhi. Delhi has a bunch of direct flights throughout the day, especially first half of the day, and that's the one way to get over there. A lot of people also do Ladakh road trips. So and then you've got a couple of options. One is to drive down from Manali all the way to Leh, or the other one is to drive down from Srinagar.
Yeah, so cool. There's a few ways of getting there, and obviously, like we said, the very popular way is riding your bullet to Leh Ladakh, right? When would you suggest is a good time to visit here?
If you check out any articles, any blogs, any written content out there, you would find that the tourist season typically starts from June, July and ends in September. So that's the peak season. Even we shot our series in July. But to be honest, I would not recommend that. One thing that I would have changed about everything about our show, our series, our Ladakh trip would be to change the time of the year. Unfortunately, I wasn't available before or after that, and that's why we had to do it right in the middle peak of the tourist season. And not just that was not the worrisome part. The issue this time was when we shot in Ladakh, it was hot. It was hot, literally. You never expect a cold. It's everywhere. It's mentioned. It's the cold desert. It's the highest desert in the world. But it was hot, Seth. So during the days, because of the heat and because the light was so harsh, there were days when we didn't shoot anything at all. Of course, Ladakh is promoting winter tourism as well. Ladakh administration they are launching a lot of initiatives during the winters. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's Ladakh, and Ladakhi winters are super harsh. So it's not everyone's cup of tea. So ideally, for someone like me, I would have preferred the shoulder season, be it May or be it September, October.
So something to keep in mind as well. And yeah, I guess also for the climate change naysayers out there, this is also a reflection that things are changing, even though we are talking about the cold desert.
It's a harsh reality. It's a warm, harsh reality out there. You go to Ladakh and you feel it.
Yeah. So one of the other harsh realities that people should be mindful of and should start taking notice of and working towards the right direction. Now, getting back to our itinerary and our trip there, in terms of permits, is something required, like an inner line permit for traveling to this part of the country, Abhishek?
Only if you plan to go to any place other than Leh. I mean, the most typical Ladakh itinerary is Leh, and then Nubra Valley, and then Pangong. So these are remote areas, these are border areas, and they require inner line permits. The procedure these days is very simple. The administration have a website. You log on to that website, fill in your details. It's not very expensive as well. The other option is you can also get that in Leh as well.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for setting all the context and the background information for anybody planning a trip to this part of the country. Tell us a little bit about your experiences there. Like, what are the kinds of things you indulge yourself in? What were some of the stories you uncovered during this trip? Share some of those for us.
See, for most of us, our Ladakh journey, it starts from Leh itself. So first of all, even before we start exploring Ladakh, we have to be very mindful of this concept called AMS. It literally means acute mountain sickness. And it generally happens because of the lack of oxygen at higher altitudes, and our body is not acclimatized enough to live in such an environment, such a surrounding. But people go there on first day itself. They go to the market and a couple of monasteries. Next day they are in a cab doing Leh local sightseeing. Third day they are heading to Nubra. And this year itself, 11 casualties. This is the highest so far. And 11 is the official number. What I've heard from the locals, from the quote-unquote undisclosed sources, the actual number is actually close to 20. And just because of AMS, which could have easily been avoided if you would have taken the proper rest. So first 48 hours, nothing, sir. Pehle jaan hai, fir jahan hai. That's the mantra over there. So exactly that's how I started. And for that purpose, I wanted to stay at a place that one that's run by locals, that has a bit of a mix of tradition, which is unfortunately getting lost these days. Good food, good views, comfortable accommodation, and was fortunate enough that over and above all of this, I also got a very interesting host. A young woman running this place with the support of her family, and she conducts something like a heritage walk in Leh, and she took me to the back alleys. She took me to a gully called Kashmir Gully in Ladakh, where since a number of decades, Kashmiris have migrated. They have the typical Kashmiri breads over there. So we did a series in Kashmir last year, and I remember, so these simple bakeries are called kandur in Kashmiri and in Kashmir. So I could see the exact similar kind of breads over there in this lane. And it's a very unassuming sort of a gully. I would have easily missed that. But so she took me to her. Then another interesting story was I was able to meet Indian women's ice hockey goalkeeper, who also happens to be an art conservator. So first of all, I never even knew that there is a ice hockey team. in our country. I didn't even know what ice hockey is. Probably I would have seen that, but never knew that it exists in our country. Right. And the story of this female, how she got attracted to this profession, this sport, and at the same time, so now imagine ice hockey. If even if you picture it in your head, it's a very aggressive sport, and so all adrenaline pumped up and everything. And her other profession is, so in summers she's an art conservator, in winters she's a ice hockey player, and two completely, for me at least, for a novice like me, complete different professions. One is more to do with physical aggression, the other is more to do with understanding the culture, because art and culture goes hand in hand. They have to, art conservator is not just about cleaning what you have found. You also have to work on a lot of projects wherein you have to replicate or recreate that thing. So she did her master's in that, and if I'm not wrong, either she has done her PhD or she's pursuing her PhD still, again in art conservation. So, but meeting her was such a phenomenal experience. The way she described her life and how her life changed with every decision that she took. There are very few people who really touch you. And even though I just had the honor of meeting her once, I would never forget her. So yeah, these are the kind of experience. This is the kind of Leh that generally you don't get to see. Like Pashmina, if you have heard of it. So Pashmina is everywhere across the world. It's known as Kashmiri product. I never knew that the best Pashmina comes from, at least the raw material for the best Pashmina comes from Ladakh. Even Kashmir, it comes from Ladakh. So again, met these young entrepreneurs who have started a boutique as well as a cafe in Leh, wherein at cafe they are trying to revive the old grandmother's recipes. And in their boutique, they are trying to create the fusion version of Ladakhi attires, that entire couture culture over there. And that is where I got to know the Pashmina story. I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for my wonderful host at this Airbnb, I wouldn't have been able to go to such people, meet them, talk to them, understand their story. And yeah, it was a very different Leh. To be honest, I didn't go to a typical itinerary of Leh would involve going to a monastery, going to a gurudwara, going to this magnetic hill, and a bunch of other places. And I'm not demeaning any places. It's just that my interest more lies in the people aspect of it and in the nature landscape aspect of it. And I love my time over there. And so the Leh episode is already out. That was the first episode, and you would get to see all these people, hear from them. I've just given you a very preface or a concise version of that, but you would get to see them and know a lot of new stuff, like be it ice hockey or be it the fact that Pashmina is from Ladakh.
Yeah, like a lot of times we don't even easily relate, right? We don't look beyond. Obviously there's no two ways that the place is beautiful, right? Yeah. But if that's the only thing we're rushing and seeing the views and getting selfies, like you mentioned, we're only scratching the surface. We're not getting beyond and deeper into a lot of other aspects of the things that a local is showing in such a great fashion here, right? Laid back and getting into these details.
And that's what I always say, that after a point in time, maybe you would forget the landscapes. Yeah. You would forget the sunrises, the sunsets, but you would never forget the people and the conversations. Yeah. And that plays such an enormous role in understanding a place, in getting to know it.
Yeah. Wonderful. You spent some time here. You saw the beautiful places, along with capturing the stories underneath or in those streets, in those people, the locals of the place, etc. Spending some time here, where next did you, what was the next pit stop or a story that you were looking at?
So, another misnomer is that to acclimatize at the start of your Ladakh journey, the only option is Leh. But truth be told, these days, a lot of organizations are also working on agri-tourism in and around the villages of Leh. The intent is twofold. One is that it's being done to actually decongest Leh, to take pressure off Leh. And the other thing is to generate a secondary source of income for a lot of these dying villages. When I say dying villages, these are called ghost villages because all the younger generation, they are migrating either to Leh or to Chandigarh or to Delhi. And because of that, there's no one to take care of them, their farms, and they believe that their culture is dying with them. So these organizations are trying to build homestays in such villages, and because of the proximity to Leh, they can also be a great option to acclimatize. And even better than Leh because you would be in clearer and cleaner surroundings. You would have even better views than you would be getting in Leh, and you would get a peek into the local lifestyle. So that's why I went to this village called Phyang, which is just, if I'm not wrong, 20 kilometers from Leh, and spent a few days with the family over there, discussed their current lifestyle, discussed their childhood, roamed around with them in their village, understood the kind of life that they have, had some really, really good food and very, very heartwarming moments with them.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about spending time here with the village. Like, what is the family you were living with? What were their primary livelihoods? And also, what is life living in a village, in a Ladakhi village?
See, because Phyang is not very far from Leh, so a lot of people do have, in fact, a lot of youngsters, they do have their day jobs in Leh itself. Even with the family I was staying with, so their son, I think he runs a bike rental company in Leh. 2 to 3 days a week he stays in Leh itself. The remainder of the week he's back home. The life over there, they have their own farms. The uncle and auntie, the uncle used to work in the army. Now he's full-time with running his homestay and taking care of the farms. The auntie is also a government school teacher. They also have a daughter. So I was interacting with her, and ऐसी बातों में I asked that, is she working somewhere, or is she studying? And I got to know that she was pursuing her PhD, and that too in, I think, environmental sciences. And she's just come back from Punjab, I think. She was doing from Punjab University, and for a few weeks she's back in Ladakh. People are really working towards education, working towards a better life, but I could still see that not at the cost of so in a bid to create a so-called better lifestyle, they are not missing out on the luxuries of village life. And they have time to talk. That is something that I found missing everywhere else, unfortunately. But I mean, there are two sides to the coin. Of course, they have to. They know that they have a very small peak tourist season. That's also the primary reason that this time around everybody is completely into their business. But over here, beat the water, beat the air, beat the views, beat the food. I found, I might be biased, but I'll be honest, I won't be lying if I say that the food tasted tastier here. It has something to do with the air of the place. Plus, I was also in touch with Sonam Wangchuk's organization, which is called Himalayan Institute of Alternate Learning. And they are behind setting up these Himalayan farm stays. So they also conduct a heritage walk over there, wherein they take you through the ruins of the old palace. They also take you, even if somebody is not interested in staying in the village, but still you would get to interact with the locals, who get to spend some time in a local's home, because during this walk they have 2 pit stops, one for In the middle of the walk, they would stop for tea at somebody's place, and at the end of the walk, they would, after taking you through villages, through streams, through river crossings, through monasteries, they'll take you to another place, somebody else's homestay, where you would have a typical Ladakhi lunch in their Ladakhi kitchen. So that is something that I would like to point out. So Ladakhi kitchens are very unlike the usual kitchen or dining setup that we have their home. They have the floor seating, and they have huge kitchens, really big kitchens. One side is all decorated with their brass utensils or iron or steam utensils and mitti ka chulha and all of that. And the other is the seating side, because that is, in the earlier days, that used to be the coziest corner of the home. So everyone used to sit over there, and in these villages, these places are not just for show off, they are still very much functional. We had all our meals over there, sitting with the entire family, the grandparents and the uncle, auntie, their kids. They have these very well decorated in the typical art forms and the typical art style tables, and low mattress wala seating around those tables. And for me, it's these moments that leave an impact. Yeah, as I said, with great company, the food always tastes better, even if it's simple dal chawal.
Yeah, tell us a little bit. I'm just curious also in terms of the types of food beyond your usual momos and thukpas that people usually associate as this is the cuisine of the place. What is the real or what is the food people usually have?
We have to understand that Ladakh was at the cross section of a lot of cultures. Be especially during the Silk Route era. So a lot of Chinese influence, a lot of Tibetan influence, a lot of Mongolian and Afghani influence into their food, especially the kind of spices that they use, or the kind of breads that they make. So Ladakhi, there's this bread called khambir, and so that is generally how a lot of Ladakhis, they start their day with. Like we have Mari biscuit and chai, they have khambir and butter tea, and butter tea is actually salt. Yeah, it goes by different names in different Himalayan regions, be it Bhutan, Sikkim, Kashmir, or Ladakh. But it's actually salted tea. And with this khambir, early in the morning, you dip the bread in khambir. So a lot of people, they get the shock of their life when someone when people call it tea, and when they taste it and it's salty. So and how I was able to condition my mind around it is, don't consider it a tea, consider it a soup. You would be really able to appreciate it. That's one. Then for us, thukpas are just soupy noodles basically, with different spices, right? But in Ladakh, thukpas also have, I think dozens of varieties. So I tried the vegetarian version because the family that I was staying with was vegetarian. But there's a non-veg version as well. It's called chutagi. You can call it a local Ladakhi pasta. Handmade pasta made from, so these are wheat dumplings that go into that. Very simple to make and such a wholesome dish. So they had whatever there's fresh seasonal produce, be it peas, be it broccoli, be it cauliflower or capsicum, turnips, whatever you get, you give it a bit of a fry, put some basic, very mild spices, some water, boil it, put these hand-rolled wheat pasta, and that's it. So very, very easy to make, but very wholesome dish. They call it chutagi.
Chutagi, yeah.
I also tried their local liquor called chang, which is made from barley.
Right.
Again, at a local's place itself. It is an acquired taste, yes, because the first place where I had it, I couldn't have it more than one glass. And when I say one glass, they serve it in short glass. But the next place, I think probably the preparation was slightly different. So it was more on the sweeter side. And yeah, I even though I was working, but I gulped down a couple or 2 to 3 glasses. And with that, they serve you some, again, homemade snacks, something made from dried cheese. There was something called churpi, which was made from dried cheese. It's a very crunchy, slightly sweet and sour sort of a snacks. Their version of the kind of chips that we get outside, more on the lines of kurkure, but it's harder. It was harder than kurkure, white in color, made from dried cheese from yak milk. The place there where I stayed at in Leh, the host that I had over there, her sister also runs a food experience. And why I'm focusing more on the word experience, because it is an experience to be hosted at her place, because this lady, she conducts a food tour at her place, a food tasting experience at her place, which easily runs for 3 to 4 hours. It's a gastronomical experience. It's not just a dining experience. It's an experience of food. It's an experience of culture. They conducted at 2 places. One is their own boutique homestay, or in the Stoke Palace.
Okay.
The dish that I liked the most, because I ordered the same in my dinner as well, and I had the food tasting experience at around lunch. It was called Yar Khandi Pulao. So Yar Khand is a region in China. That is where that's the place from where this dish comes into Tibet and then to Ladakh. I really loved it for the texture, because it has a bit of crunch. It had a bit of softness from raisins. It had a bit of sweetness. A very succulent meat. Even to be honest, when what we call momos, it's called, popularly they are called momos only in Ladakh, but the local name is mok mok, M-O-K, so mok mok. Ladakhi momos are very different. There are a lot of people, especially from Delhi, again, don't kill me for that, but a lot of people from Delhi complain कि अरे यार ये क्या momos है, हमारे यहाँ तो अच्छे मिलते हैं, तो बड़े मोटे मोटे हैं, they are very hard. But what we have to understand is, over there, by default, earlier they only used to serve mutton momos. And to be able to retain mutton with the juice of the mutton, with the juice of the entire preparation, because those used to be slightly juicier momos. It used to have, in a way, you can say some broth as well as the meat chunks as well. So that's why to bind it all together, to hold on to that liquid, the momos dough, it used to be thicker.
Right.
So yeah, and such conversations you only get to hear when you sit with them. Another very popular thing in Ladakh are dried fruits. So they dry a lot of their stuff. What I tried was dried apples and dried apricots, and they use it as desserts as well. Sometimes you're not really into a cheesecake or a mithai. They are really, really good, because the quality of the produce that you get, especially for these 2 fruits, apples and apricots, are really good. And for winter months, they dry a lot of fruits.
I think apricot is also like very popular in the region, right? Especially like apricot jams from here, they're pretty popular too. So good way of like trying out them in the dry form as well, right?
Exactly. And in fact, for us, it has become a kind of a snack. So 2 things I was very clear about when I went to Ladakh. One, I will not have Maggi over there. So all those 15 days, I didn't have Maggi. The second one was, I will not buy your chips and Lays and Kurkures. So for our journey days, we used to keep these dried fruits. They taste really good. They fill your tummy. They are quick energy shots. And I even bought a couple of bags and brought back home as well. Unfortunately, it's all over now, so I'm sad. I have to get them from Ladakh, and I have a couple of friends who are planning to go there later this month. So hopefully, I'll get my bags full.
say no to lays while in Leh, right?
Well, that can be a hashtag, yeah. No lays in Leh.
Yeah. And no plastic cover also, that means. So
no plastic wrapper as well.
Double benefit, double bonus. So wonderful. Yeah, that really sounds like a delectable experience, right? The food also, like even we mentioned at the beginning, we don't tend to like get out of our comfort zones or get out or try out anything beyond the momos and the thukpa, which are also great. I mean, it's fair that some of these might have an acquired taste or might not be in your comfort zone, right? But I think the whole experience is to go and try out things that are not something that you'd be eating in your day-to-day diet.
And yeah, right? and that's very well said, that it's not that you are going to love everything, but one thing I can promise, that you would, of all the dishes, you would find one or two of your favorites.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's the Yar Khandi Pulao, definitely really, really good. And these dried apricots. Third one was chutagi. I think in the coming winters, I'm definitely making it, because I have this. In winters, I need my soups, I need my ramens, and I think this is such a simple dish, such a wholesome dish, healthy dish, and I'm definitely making my version of chutagi in the coming winters.
Chutagi, yeah, the Ladakhi version of pasta. Yeah?
The Ladakhi version of pasta.
Wonderful, cool. Thanks so much, Abhishek, for making me hungry now. Even though I've had breakfast, I have to go find something. But after spending some time here at Phiang, and obviously even from an experience perspective, total 180-degree turn from, let's say, your experience in Leh, right? It was very different from that sense. So great that you had an option to make the overall trip so diverse. Where next to? Like, what was the other types of experiences or things you tried out?
So next, I head to Nubra Valley. So even before I head to Nubra Valley, or even before I decided on Ladakh, I had, of course, two places which feature on everybody's itinerary, everybody's Ladakh itinerary, are Nubra Valley and Pangong. And even though initially I thought that I would give them a miss, but when I started reading about them, I realized that so far what I've seen, it's not even scratching the surface, because again that place, be it from the history or the cultural aspect, or even from the landscape aspect or from the story aspect, that place offers a lot. Offers really a lot. It's not just going to Nubra Valley is not just about camel rides, those double humped camel back rides, Bactrian camels, or the ATV rides. There are more to that. Once you cross the Khardungla Pass, which in the recent episode I've said that, unfortunately, sorry to break your myth, Khardungla Pass, even though it's touted as the highest motorable road, unfortunately it's not. In fact, it's not even in top 10.
Oh no.
A lot of people go over there, and there's this placard over there, highest motorable road, and people take selfies and put it on their social media.
How many YouTube thumbnails was that?
Exactly. But it is not the highest motorable road.
Interesting.
As a matter of fact, even the height mentioned over there, it's wrong. Over there, I think, if I'm not wrong, on that stone it's mentioned 18,000 something, 18,300 or something, but I think actually it's 17,500, and that's why it's not the highest motorable road. But again, the fun is there in the journey, definitely. The journey is quite exhilarating. Be well rested, be well acclimatized before embarking on that, because even though Nubra Valley is either the same or at a lower altitude than Leh, but the journey to that place would take you to one of the highest passes, and that's why it can take a toll. So being well acclimatized is a no-brainer over here. That is something all of us have to do. So once you reach Nubra Valley, there are different villages. There are these villages where they conduct these, as I said, camel rides and ATV rides. Then there's a village which got popularity in the recent years called Turtuk. So I couldn't visit that because it was on the other side. But that place also has a great history. If I'm not wrong, before 1971 war, it was in Pakistan, and then overnight India acquired, and it became a part of India. So the culture over there resembles, it's very different. It resembles the Baltistan culture, the Balti people who stayed on the other side of the border. Even the features of these people, it's very different. They are supposedly they are from the Aryan race, and the language is quite different. So that feels like a different mini world within Ladakh itself. So that's one side of Ladakh. The other side, where I spent my time this time was the side or the road that goes towards Siachen base camp. So there are a few smaller villages over there, which gave me a different peek into the Ladakhi life, and that also at such remote locations. Because of Siachen, Indian Army tries to keep the Khardungla Pass open almost throughout the year, even during peak winters. If it gets closed for a few days or a week or two, then they try to reopen it as soon as possible. But earlier, that side of Ladakh used to get disconnected from the entire world. If during the case of an emergency, people used to get airlifted, otherwise there's no airport, nothing. And then living over there, over there we stayed at this new luxury boutique property called the Kyagar, a property which is focused on sustainable development. The kind of rooms that they had built, they had tried to capture in the local architecture, the local essence, try to use mud bricks, try to use multani mitti. So that was definitely a thumbs up from my side. And the views over there, especially in the evenings, we actually used to pack up and then literally do nothing, just admire the view. And from there, of course, you can. So we got to visit the ruins of a fortress, then got to visit another holy lake, which is relatively unheard of. I'm not really into geotagging a place. So even in our episode, even though if somebody really hears the conversation, then only, let's say Saif and I are talking, and as a part of our conversation, even though we are sitting at that lake, but I've not really geotagged it. There's no text or superscript that comes over there mentioning the name of the place. But because the explorers, they will find it.
Right.
Then there would be vandalizers who would ruin it. So that's why, I try to. Of course, that also is a travel enthusiast dilemma of how to maintain the balance between over-popularizing a place. But that can be for some other day, for some other discussion. Of course, so these, be it this holy lake, be it the ruins of the fortress, be it the food at that, in those remote valleys, discovering that village. We went on a village walk with the Sarpanch of the village, who was telling us that how the place used to be and how it still is. I got to know that Ladakh still shows its earlier lifestyle in winters, because again, to quote my host at this property called the Kyagar, that in winters people have time for each other, and that's why they also so they wait for the summers, of course, to run their shop. So summers are the food for the tummy, and winters is the food for the soul.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Yeah, the never-ending dilemma also, right? I mean, obviously you would like to lead your life that way, where you have enough time for everything, but at some point practicality also hits you that you have to do something.
True.
And the the important thing is maintaining the balance between the two, right? And I think this is very beautifully said, that summer is for the tummy and winters are for the soul. And thank you so much for taking us through these literally different facet of Leh and Ladakh, and for that matter, any place, right? Any place. You look at it this way, you'll always find completely, totally different experience in it. The important thing is you trying to look for that experience, right? So thanks so much for sharing that with us. Any final closing thoughts or places you'd like to touch upon? Obviously, we'll link all of these, the series and the different episodes that we touched upon, plus the link to the YouTube channel as well in the show notes, so people can check it out. But Abhishek, any final thoughts or other things you'd like to touch upon before we start wrapping up?
See, the only thing is that a lot of times we see and hear people, or either on in their captions or on their T-shirts and merchandise, that mountains are calling and I must go.
Hashtag get laid.
Hashtag get laid. Hashtag Ladakh calling. But all I would add on to that is, yes, mountains are calling, but mountains are calling for help. And yes, I must go. And I must go to save them.
Beautiful. Abhi rulaoge Abhishek, or if you keep talking for a while, I think that's a really deep thought, and it's the bottom line is beyond our personal motives, right? Think of sustainability, think of the ecology and the people and or like the ecology that actually gets impacted by these, right? By not being responsible when you travel there, like we mentioned at the beginning, be it littering or not being mindful of whatever it is, right? Using of water or the resources that are scarce in these areas. We're actually like just impacting them in a negative way. So mountains are calling, but they're calling out for help. I think that's a great line to cap off this discussion for. And please do check out Abhishek's The Untravel Show. Like we mentioned, we'll make sure to include the links in the show notes so everybody could enjoy that. And Abhishek is also planning on not just keeping these experiences for you to see, but eventually for you to actually go and experience and enjoy too as well. Abhishek, you want to touch upon the new trips that you're also going to be planning in the future?
Yeah, so these are what we would like to call untravel experiences. The idea is that these are group trips for people who hate group trips. I being one of them, because never really been a fan of very itinerary driven, fast paced trips, and that's why we came up with these concepts. Untravel experiences wherein people would get to untravel with the chief untravel officer, and at the same time discover a different facet, a different side of a destination. These are by invite only, so there's an application process. All our episodes, they have the link to the form, the link to the application form, wherein you can go and submit your application. It would just take a few minutes. Then I and my team, we go through each and every application, and every month we shortlist 6 people who actually get to be a part of this trip. These are, of course, paid trips, but our focus is more on building a community of like-minded travelers, or building a community of mindful travelers. We try to conduct one every 1 or 2 months, so on an average 45 days. We have so far we have conducted 5. Not this year, but next year, definitely we would be conducting one in Ladakh as well. So yeah, if somebody is interested in the kind of Ladakhi experiences we had, 3 of the episodes are already out. Another 3 to 4 are in pipeline, which would be out in the coming weeks. So do give them a watch. If you like what you saw, feel free to apply for them. And yes, if things work out well, happy to have you on board on our upcoming experiences.
Wonderful. I think I should also make my way and start filling out that application whenever I'm in India next. But yeah, thank you, Abhishek. It was lovely, as always, having you on the podcast, and really getting a sense of a different way of traveling, a more mindful and more sustainable way of traveling as well. So thank you so much. Always appreciate you coming on the show and looking forward to having you back very soon.
Definitely. Thanks again, Saif. Convey my regard to Faiza as well. And yeah, looking forward to meeting you, man. We have interacted so much, but we haven't ever met. So yeah, let's try and make that happen soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Abhishek. Enjoyed having this chat with you.
Perfect. Take care, man.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.